Last week, Paul, it was the calm before the storm, and today it is the aftermath of the storm.
Mhm.
We're going to talk about I don't know, is this one of the bigger weekends in wrestling history when it pertains to AEW and WWE, like the competition?
Well, I think it felt that way going in. I'm not sure coming out. We've had some weekends with, shows with, with where both companies had a show. Obviously All In weekend, and there's been a few times when Double or Nothing and the Saudi show have come on the same weekend, and there's been a few others. So, um, but I think this one definitely had the most hype. It's the first time they've had main roster pay per view and AEW pay per view or PLE, whatever you want to call it, on the same day since what, 88 or something? Like
1987.
seven, yeah,
I
WrestleMania
mean,
3 and what was it?
no, it was Starrcade '87
Oh,
and Survivor Series,
Survivor
which
Series,
which
right.
was created solely to go head
Yeah.
to head with
Yeah,
Starrcade.
that one, yeah, Dave's told the story many times about the cable companies, and and 5 of them in the country, including San Jose, decided to air WCW and everyone else picked WWE.
So,
Um,
a story that is not often told is when Vince McMahon had told the cable companies, because Vince McMahon has threatened to pull his shows off of cable companies before, but WrestleMania 5, which he saw as like this big leverage event, right? Hogan versus Savage, like
mhm,
that's his big leverage. He was trying to change the split for what he was going to get for that show from some of the pay-per-view companies and what that split was. So he was threatening like to hold out that show unless they changed the split. And what the actual I don't actually know who was kind of in charge of this whole thing. I don't whoever's kind of running the whole pay-per-view business back then. But that person went to Ted Turner and said, "You run a show on this day against Vince, and we will show your show, and we will not show Vince's show."
hmm, interesting.
And so then what happens is the eventually Vince comes down, like the bully usually does when the bully gets slapped around, he has to give up the fight. And then but it put the pay-per-view company in a predicament because
Mhm,
they're like, "Oh man, now we don't want competition because it's going to split the revenue. Like we want to focus on this one show." So they said, well, what you can do, which was the previous year, that they did not want this to happen anymore, which was you can run your Clash of the Champions because the after the WrestleMania 4 scenario where they ran the original Clash of Champions against WrestleMania 4, they didn't want that to happen anymore. But because they had asked Turner to run a pay-per-view going up against WrestleMania 5, they said, "Okay, you can actually run this as a Clash of Champions instead." I don't know if you remember that
and that
show.
was Flair Steamboat, right?
That was Flair Steamboat.
Yeah.
They booked that giant Superdome building, and they had, like, 3,000 people in there.
Wow. That's yeah. Well, I mean, those matches and series is remembered fondly, but it definitely was not great business.
N
Um,
and the show, before that, I think it would have been maybe the March show, whatever it was in Chicago. WWE runs a house show the night before, and they did the gimmick where they run it late because they
mhm.
wanna exhaust the wrestling audience. That Hogan Savage house show outdrew the pay-per-view, like, by a lot,
Yeah, yeah. Well,
like,
that's
by
yeah.
almost 2 I think 2 to 1 maybe even.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, that sounds about right. Probably would have had better ticket prices, and obviously WWF was a lot hotter at the time. Hogan and Savage is their marquee match, and at that time, people would pay to see it at a house show. It wouldn't be the same as now, but back
Maybe
then,
it wasn't Hogan Savage, maybe it was Hogan Bossman, but it was like you remember when they ran that cage match around the
yeah,
loop where they did the
right,
superplex
yeah,
saw it might have been that, but I'm just trying to
yeah.
remember it based off
But
of
either
reading
way, like,
Canadian
yeah,
observers.
you're talking about WWF still. It wasn't until '91 when they crashed, so they're still pretty hot in 1990.
So there's a little history there. Okay, let's talk about these shows,
Yep.
the All Out and Wrestlepalooza. I think what we're going to do, instead of having 3 topics and giving our thoughts on those topics, I think we're just going to kind of talk about the pluses and minuses from our perspective of both of these shows, and then we can argue them or agree or
Sure.
whatever.
I also want to. I'm gonna mention at some point. I'll figure out when it's appropriate. But I also watched the CMLL show, and I think there's some parallels to what we're gonna talk about. So when that's appropriate, I'll bring it up.
Okay, I think let's start positive because I've some
Okay.
negative things that I'm gonna
Sure.
bring up, but let's start positive. And do you have a preference? Do you want to start AEW? Do you want to start
So you want me
WWE?
to give you some positives on the AEW show? I thought the wrestling on the show was good, as it tends to be with AEW. The main event was, some people would probably call it match of the year caliber. I've got it like just a touch below that, but I mean it was right up there with the best match I saw this weekend, which was MJF and Mystico. Um, I'm sure there's people out there that would maybe think the MJF Mystical match was better, but I saw it on Triller with bad commentary and bad sound mixing. So I do think that affects it. And I'll also say like in terms of like, I'm trying to think of how to put this. I think that to their hardcore fan base, they are delivering what that fan base wants to see. And I'm supposed to be positive on this segment, but I guess yeah, I'll just say I'm not sure that that's what I want to see, but
Yeah, no.
I do think it works for their audience.
So you are part of the audience, by the way.
Well, I know, yeah,
You are also the type of sicko fan that Tony Khan is trying to cater to. I
yeah,
think there's some of the things that happen in AEW that there's an overabundance of things that maybe that you don't like. But at the same time, like you do watch more wrestling than most people. So I will say I'm not going to disagree with you. The one thing I will say about catering to that audience, though, is the positioning. Because let's use a Star Wars reference. WWE is the evil empire, right? WWE is Darth Vader. WWE is the Emperor. And Tony Khan positions AEW a little bit as like the rebels, as
mhm,
like the little engine that could. Now, I don't see them like that because Tony Khan is richer than everybody on the WWE side. I wonder if he's more rich than Ari Emanuel. I would have to. I don't know how much Ari Emanuel is worth, but from that perspective, I don't see it that way. But from the size of the company and the opportunity and their inability to make a lot of these deals that WWE is making, yeah, I could see it that way. And the other thing about this is we were kind of talking about this off air. Some of the AEW audience, and I wish I could figure out how much of the audience is this way, but a lot of them are disenfranchised former WWE fans. And they're former WWE fans for a multitude of reasons. One, we went through this post 2002 all the way through the 20s. It was like the same product that was average for the most part. And in some cases a little bit better, and in some cases like really really worse. So when the status quo of pro wrestling is not excellent, you leave room for something to come along, and it just took forever for AEW to come along. So I think that's part of what this fan base is. And the second part is because of WWE's politics, they can be a giant turnoff. So if you are looking at pro wrestling and going like, you know what, pro wrestling is already kind of in the mud as it is, just in general, and somebody is over here trying to do it a little bit better with maybe a little bit morality, I'm going to give them my money versus giving the crazy rich company my money. So there's also a kind of good versus evil in that perspective there. Again, I don't see it that way because There are still things that if Tony Khan really wanted his wrestling to be on the up and up, he could be for unions. He could be
Mhm.
for, all of these different things that we've always been negative on Vince McMahon for. Tony Khan could have flipped the switch on it, and because he also has the money to do so. So that is, just playing those two sides together. I think some of the fan base sees it like that. And there is, you don't really need a reason to be a fan, right? As long as to
Mhm.
you, you're like, this is what I root for and this is what I root against. So my positive on this AEW show, and it's gonna sound a little bit like dismissive, but the strength of AEW to me as a viewer is also somewhat their weakness, which is the build to this show. I was just like, I can't believe these are the angles you are running to compete head to head with WWE. So it lowered my expectation about what I thought the show was going to be. And as is the case for most AEW shows, they sort of over deliver on what I expect. But the reason why they can over deliver is because I think the build to these stories are often really just lacking. And some of it happens on Collision. I know that's my fault for not watching, but I I'm not going to sit there and watch the B show and then all of a sudden go, oh my gosh, it was actually an A show this week. I got to catch it again next week. No, I know the trick. I understand that it's mostly going to be a B show. And the flip side of the WWE is I thought their build was really strong for this show. The AJ Lee stuff was incredible. Like just some of the best stuff that they've done all year. These John Cena and Brock Lesnar SmackDown videos were
Mhm.
incredible. Joe Tessitore explaining, and they weren't 100% truthful, but they were about as close as they would usually get on why Lesnar left, on why he came back, and all that stuff. Those were incredible. So their strength was in building up this show, and then which I thought underdelivered, like maybe even worse than a normal B show. They had the star power for an A show, and to me, the delivery was maybe even lesser than some of those B shows that I don't like. So, from that perspective, if you came into this show or both this weekend thinking like, man, we're here to have these two great shows, I don't think AEW was great. It was just better than I thought it was going to be. And WWE's was just way worse than I had hoped. I just thought ESPN, Netflix, like you remember how much effort they put into that first Netflix show. Whether
Mhm.
you liked it or not, they made that first Netflix show feel like can't miss. And
Yeah.
that's what this ESPN show should have been.
Yeah, and the only, like, really special thing on the ESPN show was probably the opening. Like, I really, really
Which was
liked that
really cool.
opening
It was
package,
really
yeah.
cool.
It was interesting that they chose that to show Vince on screen for the first time, since he was ousted from the company. I
Old
don't
Vince, though, it was
Yeah,
specifically the
yeah.
'70s version of Vince. Like,
Well,
I think
80
that was
80s too, 80s too, like, they showed the WrestleMania events, but,
oh, did they show
yeah,
I saw gold was the
the one
yellow
where
mustard,
where he
jacket.
interviews Andre and he's, like, a foot lower than him, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, but I mean, they did like that's just step one, I think, in getting people ready. But yeah, no, I totally agree because at the end of the day, like I rated both these shows, like if I'm giving them a grade out of 10, and I had to do that on the post game show that I did with Keela, I gave them both the exact same score, but yet I had different feelings about both shows, and they're based on again your expectations going in.
Can
And
can can we be honest about something too, is
sure,
when you are watching these shows in a community,
hmm,
like I try and watch because, I
yep,
like to watch with the Discord folks, and there is something that I actively dislike, and because communication is communication, somebody will reply with, "Oh, that didn't bother me at all." It makes me hate it more,
yep,
right?
yeah.
Because it's like, first off, it was just my feedback. Like you didn't need to, you didn't need to necessarily give me yours, but because it's community, you did. But it almost feels like there is a need to stick up for stuff that is not great, as if to say, you know,
Yeah.
you don't have to be so hard on these guys. While at the same time, I want to give credit to the things that they do well. And those same folks may love it way more than I did and champion it as like the greatest thing since sliced bread, which I go, yeah, I liked it, but it wasn't that good. And so it
Mhm.
makes me like it less, right? In a
Yeah,
sense.
like
Like I
when
think
you
that's human feedback, but I also so I said that to say to you,
Mhm.
you know, a lot of what you have to do with the Dynamite show is you and Jeff are trying to set realistic expectations and also analyze the show in a fair way while knowing that the hardcore AEW fans are just going to say, "Ah, you guys are wrong because of X, Y, and Z." And that is part of this element of trying to like be unbiased, trying to be like, what is this thing really? Am I being too harsh on it? Am I not being harsh enough? Because I was way harder on that WWE show. And some of it was because I I just expected the
Mhm.
all-star of all-star shows and didn't get it, but so anyway, that's
Yeah.
what's hard about doing a show like this is as we're reconciling our thoughts, sometimes our thoughts are based on the people that we're talking to as well.
Oh, sure. And like our show is interesting because like when like mine and Jeff's, I mean, because when I think our fans, our viewers, our listeners, um, expect a certain thing, and I think we have a lot of listeners that feel the same way as we do. Yeah,
Mhm.
we like AW. There's certain things about it we'd like to improve, so they don't mind when we're hard on the show. Um, and honestly, sometimes when I get too positive is when I hear, the feedback like, "Oh, that wasn't that good." You know what I mean? Like, so I'm kind of getting it that way, and in between with me and Jeff, I'm maybe like the good cop when it comes to like AW and he's more the bad cop. But I mean, but then you go into the Discord and everyone thinks I'm like this AW hater or something because like I'll make a comment about the swearing and then it turns into like 8,000 comments. Like meanwhile it's just like I have these high expectations for AEW, and when they don't live up to them, I'm going to point it out. And that doesn't mean I hate the company. It means I want better, and if they want my money, then they need to live up to that because again, like if they were just on a streaming service that I got for free, or not that I got for free, but that I paid for already for other things like Paramount or even Max, if I was in there, like
But
if
that's the key to this thing, though.
yeah.
What you just said is why I think WWE gets the benefit of the doubt when they
Oh,
have
sure.
shows like this is because
Yep.
people go, "Eh, at least I didn't have to
Yeah.
pay $50 for that." But
Although
no, like,
now you're paying 30.
now you're paying
So
more.
yeah, whereas with me and the people that I watch the show with, we're in Canada, so we watched on Netflix.
How much do you pay
And
for Netflix, by the way?
I pay like the same as you. I think it's like 23 bucks.
Yeah,
But I would have Netflix whether WWE is on it or not.
me too.
So, yeah, so if they move to, something that I don't have, let's say Amazon Prime. Well, no, I have Amazon Prime, so that's a bad. Like I have most of the major ones, but let's say they move to some new one, Fubo, like and then they wanted 30 bucks a month for Fubo. And I'd look at Fubo and I'm like, well, okay, they got movies, but I can get that here. I get this, I can get that. There's nothing on here but WWE. Is it worth it to me to get WWE PLEs for 30 bucks? And that takes you to, based on this show that we just saw, no way. Like, like that's not a $30 show.
Okay, let's
So,
actually say this, and I don't even know if we could be consistent on this,
yeah.
but okay, so AEW was $50,
Yeah.
40 if you already have HBO Max in the US. I don't know how that worked with you.
No, well, I got it on Triller, but I'm doing this in the mindset as if I'd actually paid full price. I paid
So
45 bucks for this show and Wrestle Dream.
okay, so you have a show, AEW
Yeah.
show that's $50. Let's say the WWE show was just a $30 pay-per-view.
I wouldn't have bought it.
Okay, but based on the build, you would
Yeah.
have not based on the hype of AJ
You know
Lee
what?
of
Okay,
because I
based on
would
the
have paid the 30
you know
bucks
what?
to
Based on the
buy it.
build, yeah, I might have bought this one. Because
But
back in the day of the pay-per-views, I would pick and choose, and I would get Mania every year, I would get Rumble every year, and I would get maybe 1 or 2 others, based on the build. I would watch the TV, and it's like, okay, I like this one, I don't like it. Oh, it's Randy Orton, John Cena again. Nope, not buying that. You know what I mean? Like, but this one, yeah, I would have got it, and I think I would have been disappointed.
yeah, because the next show is the crown jewel, the Perth
Oh,
show,
no way I'm paying for that.
and there's no real hook.
No.
They have these dream matches. We get to see Cody and Seth fight for a cup, and neither of their titles are on the line, or whatever. They're not a cup, the crown jewel title. And same with Stephanie Vaquer and
I know. I was so fired up after the thing. I'm like, oh man, we're gonna get Stephanie and Rhea, and then Keela on her post game show was like, no, we're getting the champion versus champion. I'm like,
yeah,
oh,
it's
yeah, because I figured
Tiffany
Rhea
or
would be challenging
Nia.
for the title like on the show, and nope. And yeah, it's probably gonna be Jade and Stephanie. Can you imagine?
I
Oh
I
my
I
god.
would I would keep it on Tiffany for this pay-per-view. Though I could see if they wanted to do Nia, because then if you have Stephanie beating the giant monster, then it
Yeah, yeah.
could make
And
some sense.
Nia's good. Like, and just don't give her a microphone. Oh,
Um,
you got to see that SmackDown stand-up comedy routine. It was so bad.
so my point is, I think people may see this ESPN service similar to how they would see a pay-per-view.
Okay.
So some of these folks, like me, it seems like there's about 30 million of us right now. We get it because we have the right cable system. And then there's probably another 30 who don't yet, but who I think ESPN hopes will. So there's going to be a number of people who just get this thing for the sake of their cable subscriber base. It's the other folks who don't have cable who are ordering this, because if you order ESPN, the app, the unlimited version for the college football and all that stuff, you may just unsubscribe after college
Yeah.
football is over. The reason why WWE is attractive to ESPN is because of the churn aspect. If you have a pay-per-view every month, you have a hardcore WWE fan, you would hope that that means those people specifically are not churning. They're actually just going to stay with it because it is monthly content. But if you have a show like you just did,
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be some smarter buyers out there who may actually, decide to pick and choose, like you were saying that we used to do back in the day for those pay-per-views. So
Mm-hmm.
that was mostly the point there. But okay, I know, we're kind of already going off tangents and off topic, but
Sorry. Yeah.
that's what this show is about anyway. So who cares?
Yeah.
Okay, now give me I'll add one more thing to my positive on the AEW show.
I'll add a positive too. I thought the Jungle Boy Luchasaurus thing worked really well,
Okay,
even though I didn't like it.
I
But
actually hated it. I thought it was
I
flat.
hated it too,
I
but
thought it
it
was flat
worked.
as all hell.
Oh,
It
the
it
crowd.
worked for the live crowd. I will
Yeah.
admit that, and that's what I always say is, if we just look at those 20,000 people in the live crowd, we are specifically not giving a voice to the other 100,000 or so people watching it on television. And I don't know what those 100,000 people thought. So I
No.
can't even
I mean, the whole
say
thing
what
made no sense. So I
it
mean,
made no sense. It was a
yeah.
step backwards. It was an admission that Jack Perry's turn was not a good idea and the stories around it were not good ideas. And it's like saying, like, okay, we give up. We screwed up here. We got to go back.
And this is at the same time as you're doing the Acclaim, doing the exact same thing.
Okay, so I made a joke that let's see if this joke goes over well on you, because it went over very well in the house at Dave's. I said that Tony Khan's announcement was going to be that Swerve Strickland and Keith Lee were getting back together as a tag team. Because what did we just see? Like, we just saw Welcome Back to 2021, which was a great time to go back to, by the way, for AEW, I thought. But my point is that when you only see what works for the live crowd, you're basically saying the television viewer is non-existent. And I just don't think we should do that. That is one thing that is unique about pro wrestling. You are entertaining a live audience and you are entertaining an audience watching at home. So let's not forget about those people, because
Yeah.
I love Jack. I love Jack more than most, and some of it is because of who his pops was and how I got to see him on the indie scene and being around him at WrestleMania 35 weekend when his pops had just passed away, and I'm just like feeling my heart is aching for this kid who's just hanging out with us. All of those reasons I love this guy, and I just thought that that was such a
Yeah.
it was almost like an admission of failure, and I
But
didn't like
but
that.
again, like I mean, you
It's
had
gonna
the
work
fans
better though.
literally chanting Luchasaurus before he even came out. So, I can't deny that part of it.
I will admit some of it is also that I just hate Luchasaurus as a wrestler.
Oh, I don't. Well, I don't like that music. So
Oh,
Keela, it's funny because Keela said, "Oh, your brain is gonna melt after the ladder match," and I'm like, I'm waiting. Like, what am I in for? And then that happened, and I'm like, yeah,
okay, so my positive.
yeah,
This is not even necessarily the match, though I like the match. I like the match even though I didn't like any of these silly stipulations all night long. Mighty Mark Briscoe's win, man. I was there with
mm,
him. I loved him getting the W. I thought MJF was fantastic.
hmm
To do that match after the match that he had, which I haven't seen yet, by the way, on Friday night. MJF is the most complete performer on in AEW, in my opinion.
mm,
The his ability to do everything because you could say the same thing about Hangman, but MJF blows him away as a promo. Hangman's probably a little bit better of a wrestler, but I think MJF is closer to Hangman as a wrestler than Hangman is closer to MJF as a promo. And and so some of it was just me going like, you know what, this MJF kid is amazing. But the other thing was like that was the fan service that I was waiting for. Was Mighty Mark Briscoe getting that W finally after all these weeks and weeks of seeing him lose. And so that was like the thing where I was like, okay, at least I got this, on this
hmm
show. So that was one. All right, now
No,
let's
that's a
go.
good one. Negative. Okay. So I will just say like overall, I don't like some of the directions that they're going, and I think that they're by design. So I don't expect it to change. But so you had the length of the show, number one. I mean,
Mhm.
5 hours for a main card is ridiculous. And to
But
me,
that
that's
was
a
that was
oh,
strategy,
I know it
right?
was.
That was
And
strategy.
it's also, there's this mindset out there that, oh, well, we got to give the fans their money's worth. And I think that there's a point where it becomes a negative. Like at after a point, like, okay, you got 3 hours of great wrestling. That's awesome. I got my money's worth. Maybe a little half hour, maybe even an hour more. But when you get to five, all of a sudden now you're cutting into my time and I want some of that money back. You know what I mean? So you got
Yeah.
that. You've also got this leaning into this more adult themed, but it's not even that, because I don't want to give the impression that I'm like a prude that is offended by language. Because I mean, I watch movies, I watch TV shows, I watch The Boys. I love The Boys, and V, like on and those that show's filthy. The Peacemaker, it's awesome, but it's filthy. um this show, like, you had announcers, like, this was my big turn off, like Daniel Bryan dropping an F-bomb, or sorry, Bryan Danielson dropping an F-bomb in the middle of a match, and then Taz and Bryan both, dropping S-bombs. It's like, okay, I get it. And when it's happening multiple times, it feels like it's a directive. And it may be that this is Tony saying, you know what, we're going to cater to our hardcore fans, and we want you to just talk like you would normally talk. So if that means swearing, that's fine. But when you're doing a professional broadcast, I watch UFC. UFC's on pay per view. Their announcers aren't swearing. Sometimes the fighters swear after the matches. That's different. Like, you're hyped up on adrenaline. You just had a literal fist fight with somebody. You might let out a swear. But when it's a backstage segment and it's being taped and assumingly scripted in some form, and you've got someone just swearing for the sake of swearing, to me, that comes off as I'm watching an indie. And
Yes.
that's where, like, I'm just, you kind of lose me. And then some of the, we mentioned the skit that they did at the beginning. You had the acclaimed thing. You had that Moxley Darby thing with, trying
Setting
to
him
light
on
him on
fire.
fire, except he didn't.
He
Like, it looked bad.
I mean, Moxley's the way Moxley's, rear end jumped, it sure seemed like he caught him on
Well,
fire.
maybe, but then it was so nonsensical because the skit started with Marina screaming at a cameraman, "Tape this right fucking now!" And then they go to Mox, and he's like, "Get away from here!" It's like, what are we doing? Like, what is this? And yeah, so I was just like, yeah, so that all that stuff, like, if it was honestly, like, if he just put wrestling out there in video packages, like, I would have liked the show a lot more. It would have been shorter, and we wouldn't have had all this bad content. But because of that, it brought the show down a little bit for me. So where I would have given it like maybe like a 7.5 or an 8 on just on the wrestling, but the rest of it took it down so much I gave the show a 6. So, like that's just kind of where I was at. So, and at that point, like when you're giving me a 6 and you're asking me to pay $50, maybe next time I don't want to pay the $50. I'll just watch Dynamite, which has great matches every week. And and I like the show most of the time, and I don't have to pay $50. Or I'll find a
So,
Dave that I can go watch it at.
yeah, you eh, it would be interesting what my life would be like if I didn't get to watch all these shows at Dave's house.
Yeah.
Um, here is the counter to what you just said,
Okay.
which is that this is the filthiest wrestling show in the not in the history of overall wrestling, but in the history of US wrestling.
Yeah, I mean ECW maybe, but I mean again, that's indie, in a sense.
Did they have as many I was not a giant ECW fan, so you'd
Well,
have to
Joey
tell me.
Styles wasn't swearing during
I'm
commentary,
just
so
talking
there's
about the
that.
stipulation and the blood and guts.
Oh, no, no, and we had a lot of that. Like, no, I watched all those ECW shows. There was a
Okay.
lot of that. Yeah.
So, when you have a show, where Moxley and Darby are, the whole storyline is worked around Moxley's ear and biting the ear and forking the ear and stabbing Moxley in the forehead with the fork. Now, if John Moxley was hearing me give this criticism, he would call me a word that rhymes with wussy.
Yeah, and he'd
But
say, like, Don't buy the show if you don't like it."
but
Yeah.
this is not me speaking as
Yeah, I know, I know.
me. This is me speaking as part of the audience that you're
I didn't
kind of
even
talking
the
about.
match itself didn't even bother me that much because it was like I was expecting it. I
But
was
when you have that much blood and guts,
Mhm.
should the swearing offend you? Because
It doesn't offend me. That's
we
what I'm
have
saying, like, it doesn't offend me. It
or frustrate you from a professionalism standpoint.
Well, that I think so. I think you can have the hardcore brutality like UFC, like people are bleeding and they're literally pounding the hell out of each other. Yeah, they're not using forks and all that, but they're not swearing. If again, like I'll watch GCW for instance, okay, and this may sound hypocritical, like, but when I'm watching a GCW show, the announcers are swearing. You're seeing a lot worse than what we saw in Darby Mox, but it's also GCW. And I'm not paying $50 for the show. I'm paying $8 for Triller Plus, which is a whole month that gives me infinite indie wrestling that I want to see. I would not pay for a GCW standalone show, but I'll watch a GCW standalone show, and I would watch an AEW pay per view, you know, 8 times a week, 9 times on Sunday, if it's free. But if you're asking me to pay, then I expect a standard of some sort. So maybe I'm a hypocrite. I don't know.
But I guess my point is if they
Yeah.
have already numbed
Hmm.
us
Yeah.
to a lot of this craziness that happens, the swearing and the lack of professionalism or whatever,
Yeah. I don't
that
know.
might just be part of the game too, to then
Oh,
numb you to that stuff.
yeah, it could be. And you know what? There might be people out there that love it. Like I saw people that were so fired up because of Danielson's commentary and the way he was like jumping up and down and screaming and this match is awesome. And I'm listening to some like, come on, dude. Like and he's like talking about the neck and every single move they did. It was like Hangman was gonna be paralyzed. And it's like, yeah, that's great to sell that, but then at some point I'm not buying what you're selling because Hangman just gets up and hits a dead eye and wins the match. So, like the match was great. I loved it, but it was probably maybe like 15 minutes too long. But like it was a great match.
Yeah, I guess my negative would be in what they did with the surprises because
Okay.
I want to give them credit because one of Tony Khan's best booking things was his ability to let his fans know that a surprise was coming, and maybe they even kind of knew, or maybe it would make them think, and they would fantasy book what these surprises were. I mean, obviously the best one was Adam Cole and Brian
Hmm.
Danielson coming out on the same day, right? That was the maybe the best one ever in the history of me watching pro wrestling.
Hmm.
But I was also there live, so that probably had something
And
to do with
Minoru Suzuki, that everyone forgets. He was there too.
it. Oh, he came out. What did he attack
He
Moxley or
did
something?
something, yeah, and nobody was like, it was total, like, that was back before he was showing up all the time.
Yeah. So there was an attempt on this show to do something similar. You mentioned the Jungle Boy thing. There was an attempt to have a surprise title change where I think in Tony Khan's mindset was, you know, we're going to do a surprise title change and it's going to be stat and people are going to be like, "Oh my gosh," and it's going to go all over Twitter and there's going to be, Undertaker guy faces memes all over Twitter, which is not what happened, by the way. I think that was what he thought was going to happen, but it didn't happen. I admire the attempt, but I think they were off. However, it was more than WWE even did. WWE didn't
Yeah,
even try after promising. So I give credit for the attempt, but I think a negative on that show was that those things kind of came off flat and maybe were even misreads. So it's kind of a positive and a negative at the same time. But when I saw people online in our Discord being so excited for those things, I was like, are we excited because they happened, or are we excited because they're good? Now, in some cases, we may not even know if they're good for another month. Like, we'll see what happens with
right.
Stat. And this is not against Stat. I don't have anything
No,
against
I think
Stat.
I just question the timing of it, like,
I want to see if Stat's going to get that title and they're going to get behind her. I want to see a proper build to that title. Now, I understand what some have said might have been Tony's strategy, which is sometimes you can be so predictable that your fans are a little bit disinterested because they feel like they know it's going to happen. And I agree. Like I feel that way when I watch most wrestling shows. So in that way, maybe that is helpful to kind of break up the monotony of what fans think that they know. And then maybe it was a positive. Maybe it doesn't matter. Just for Stat, I would have liked her to have been built up even a tinge better than she was, because the person who they actually built up for that moment was Tekla, and they didn't give it
yeah.
to Tekla. So
No, and like Statlander, like, to the point where I don't even think she's mentioned the title, like, at all, like, in, in this current run. Like, maybe if we go back 2, 3 months, she might have, but this whole, she's never won the title and her last title shot was like 4 years ago. Like, that all kind of came out of the blue. Like, it was never part of the story, and then they just kind of threw it in, at the end, because I think maybe, they were kind of dropping seeds. But like, again, I have nothing against Stat. She's over to a certain segment of the fans, and I think that there's a story that they can tell. Jeremy Feinstein laid out a potential storyline for her that would take you into All In, and her and Willow, in a big title
but
match. And
but do you wanna see that match and have Willow not win? I think you wanna
no, I
set
think
that
Willow
up
would
so
win
that
it.
Willow wins.
I think Willow
When
would
have
win
they
that.
ever done a 1 month, or oh, you meant next year.
Yeah, yeah,
Next year's
next
all
year.
okay,
Next
good.
year's
Yeah,
All
yeah,
In.
yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah,
Got it,
yeah.
got it, got it.
Yeah, so I mean, you would, maybe Willow wins the Owen again, and then, she gets the shot at Stat, and that would require them to build Stat up for the next 8 months, which we'll see. um, it could happen.
Yeah.
And Tony, I imagine something's gonna happen with her. Maybe she's gonna have another character change or a tweak or something, and probably lose her mind a little bit, and and then come back. So I'm interested. Again, I'm not. I was just like I said, I wasn't as down. Like, if they were gonna do this, I thought Tekla would have made more sense. But again, I'm not saying, like, I'm not sure there was even a right answer, because they didn't really build. They didn't have you believing any of those three were gonna win. So just shocking your fan base and giving them a surprise title change, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's not necessarily a good thing. it's just something they did.
Okay, so let's switch over to Wrestlepalooza.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've said
Yeah, we
enough
talked a little
negative,
bit
but
about it.
we'll come back to the negative.
Yeah.
A positive for me on this show was the Stephanie Vaquer match. I think everyone sort of
Mhm.
universally agrees that that was a really good match, though not quite the classic. I think that they could have done, whether it was time or just placement. I would have liked to have seen. I don't know. There was a little bit of magic that Io has in a lot of her matches that I didn't really feel in this match. Like when Io and Rhea are in the ring together, she's got that babyface magic where she connects with the crowd. And I thought that maybe because it was Stephanie, or because it was two baby faces, whatever reason, like I didn't get that part of it, but I still thought it was really good. And more so, I really wonder what they can do with Stephanie Vaquer to take her to the next level because she's obviously got the look and got the in ring that is designed for a superstar.
Mhm.
What is there missing? Some of it is going to be promo. Is there anything else that would be missing for her not to take it to the next level?
I don't think missing is the right way to put it. I just think it's something that we haven't got a chance to see yet. Whether or not it happens is another story entirely, but I think she needs like that moment, like Rhea headlining a show in Australia. That was huge. And you built a whole pay-per-view around her. And then later on, like with coming back and having that moment with Dom and Liv, where she, like the place just blew up. And like at that point, it took her to another level. So I think what she actually needs is a storyline that people can sink their teeth into and get into. Right now, she's just a good wrestler, a great wrestler that people like and want to see more of, but there's not that storyline that you're invested in on another level. So we need to have that. She needs to interact with people. She needs to be maybe in a stable or feuding with a stable. Whereas right now, she just goes out there and has matches. Like there's no
Yeah,
personal grudges at all that she's had.
yeah. How does she turn into now their charisma is way different, but
Hmm.
Jey Uso became a top guy by winning the Royal Rumble, but you were kind of wondering if they were ever going to go with it because you could see his ascent. Some of it was they chose to feature him more, and some of it was literally his connection with the crowd. I wonder if Stephanie, because I see that same connection with the crowd in a different way, but I wonder if their like stamp of approval is all that it needs for her to go to that level, or if I mean, can in today's wrestling, in today's WWE, I should say, will they let the the woman star kind of be the top person? Because one of the reasons why Becky was able to get there, going back 7 or 8 years or whenever that was, is because Roman was lacking.
Hmm.
If Roman was on fire like the way that he was, last 2 years, she would have never got there because they would not have let her because
Yeah,
they would have.
Rhea might have got there if Roman wasn't
Right.
there. Yeah.
So that's also the other thing, which is we still have this, um, inequality around how men's wrestling and women's wrestling, is booked based on who can be stars and who's just gonna be supporting cast. Like, I
Yeah, yeah, like AJ Lee, for instance. Like if Stephanie had a storyline that people could get invested in, like they're invested in AJ Lee. Like if you combine the amount people care about AJ Lee with the wrestling ability of Stephanie, you'd have a female Roman Reigns. But the problem is I don't know how that happens. Like it's going to be really, really difficult to give. She's got, she English isn't her first language. She's relatively new. There's just not that personal, deep-seated grudge that she has with anyone, so that needs time to establish. And the more time it takes, the more you kind of get slotted at a certain level in the fans' eyes.
And
So
and going back to the guy who, puts together all of these stories, Triple
yeah,
H, both
yeah.
Evolution pay-per-views, when people had asked if they're gonna do another one, he was like, "Well, we'll see. They have to force it to happen or whatever." It's like, "No, dude, you need to force it to happen. You are the one who is writing all of these stories. You can put more attention on some of these stories rather than, some of these other stories that have to do with men." I don't agree at all that this has anything to do with, who is hotter. It is, who do you want to be hotter? And that
Right.
is the
Yeah.
whole trick here.
Yeah, if they do, like, if, for instance, they do a PLE from Mexico, like, yeah, you'd probably headline the show with Stephanie Vicaire, and see what happens. But then are they going to? Are they gonna headline with Dominic Mysterio?
Yeah.
And we might headline with Dominic, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, so, but I mean, I'm here for the ride. Like, I think that woman has, like, the potential is there to be something really, really special, and she's still, like, she's less than a year, I think, into her WWE career, right? It
Mhm.
was, like, just over a year ago, she wrestled Mercedes.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, I mean, yeah, she's come a long way in a short period of time.
All right, you liked this show more than I did. What was, something positive?
Well, the funny thing is I don't think I did. I think it's just like I think my feelings about it were better because of my personal experiences. But a positive I thought like I thought the mixed tag really delivered. And I think there might be people out there that don't agree with that, but I don't care. I'm not them. I really enjoyed it. I thought like it was a long match, and I was surprised when I saw it was 29 minutes because it didn't feel like that. It felt like 15 to 20 maybe. So when it held our attention the whole time. I thought that they build the spots really well. AJ's not the greatest in the ring, but she didn't need to be.
That
Um,
was my flaw with that match.
yeah, and that's fine. That's a legitimate criticism. But
Her offense was so bad in some cases. Like,
yeah,
she turned back the clock more than 20 years on women's wrestling with some of those strikes that she threw. And that was my fear about this match, right? I said it from
mhm,
day one. I said, this thing is great. This story is great. My fear is when AJ gets into the ring that she's not going to be able to wrestle like the women wrestle today. And it wasn't only that. Her early tarantula spots, she screwed them up. Her trying to do the stuff on, and this is really the difference in the AEW and WWE show. You had Beth Phoenix or Beth Copeland getting a stuff pile driver, a spike pile driver, right?
oh,
Which was, depending on what you thought, it was, but at least at the end of the day, it was kind of like a realistic thing.
mhm.
Whether or not it was in good taste, that's up to you.
I mean, it looked good.
In
I'll say
this
that.
one, you had CM Punk working with Becky and Seth working with AJ in the most nonsensical ways possible because they don't wanna have that violence. And so
Yeah.
it just looked like they were play fighting, and I didn't wanna see that either. So there's no right answer for me in either of these
I
because
did like some of the double team moves they did. Like the timing on them was really well. You could tell they'd worked together. Like they must have practiced some of these moves.
I don't know,
Um,
man. When you're trying to put this move on Seth and this dude's like 6'2" and you're like 5'1" or however tall age,
yeah.
I was like, come on, Seth is doing all of the work here, and it's not your. There's no mystique happening. Seth is actively putting these moves on, so that's the stuff that bothered me.
Yeah.
Um, I I like the AJ character. I like their dynamic with the four of them, but when AJ faces Becky, I'm not. I know I don't know how I'm going to be able to get behind AJ in this match. It's going to be like just
It
when they were wrestling, I was out of it. It took me out of the
it's
match.
gonna
That
have to be like a lot of like it's gonna have to be 90% of Becky on offense and AJ just selling because anytime she's on offense, yeah, like you said, it's gonna be tough because you're not gonna believe it. And I don't know if she gets a flash pin because I assume she'll win. And then if I still think they're eventually gonna end up with Nikki and AJ, and that could be really rough. Um, but I do think that that's a destination point. I'll also say, like, watching the two shows back to back, and I watched the AEW show first, obviously, and then the WWE, and then the AEW. I
Yeah,
went back and
you
forth.
you had a WWE sandwich there.
Yeah, but I say, like, the production and the crowd and just the visual presentation, WWE blew them away, like,
There
in that sense.
that
Like,
they are hot for that product, and
yeah.
sometimes I watch it and I go, "How?"
I don't just mean the crowd, like, the crowd is one thing, but I just mean the overall, like, the look, the video quality, like, the sound quality, like, everything, like, it just looks great, and I didn't sense that like, when the show started, there was, like, smoke in the
Well,
building,
you
and
talked about the WWE video package to start the
yep.
show looked first rate.
Oh, yeah,
Edge and Christian in talking to Wendell Clark, which is fine for, a small part of that audience, but to the majority of people watching was a swing and a miss. Like,
and
and
Bubbles,
even
and in
and
case
even the
Bubbles
trailer
got
park,
over.
yeah,
Yeah,
like that stuff to the large majority of that crowd, they probably all said, "Who is that and who is that?"
and that dude in the green and wearing a belt, like, I still
I
don't
think
know who
that was the
that
same
was.
guy. That was the
No,
same
there's 2
guy.
different guys, wasn't it? Oh, is it the same
I
guy
think
just
it's the
dressed
same
up?
guy. I think it
Oh
was
my
the same
god,
guy.
yeah, I had no idea. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think they assumed that everybody knew.
Major League
Yeah,
niche. That's what
yeah.
it felt like to me from the very beginning
But
of
the
the
scary
shows.
thing is, I'll bet you if they did that show in WWE in Toronto, Adam would have been pushing to do that there too.
They would have
Whether
told
or
him
not
no. They would have told him
probably.
no.
Yeah,
They would have
okay.
said,
Yeah.
"If you get, Wayne Gretzky or Mario Lemieux, yes."
Yeah, and maybe Eugene Levy, instead
Right.
of,
Exactly.
yeah,
Then yes
or
and
at
yes.
least, the very least, if you're gonna put Bubbles on there, they probably would have had him on TV, like, about 4 times
Right.
before that, to tell everybody, "Okay, this is Bubbles.
Right.
He's gonna be at the show." Yeah, but you just randomly show up backstage. Yeah, it was, and
Bubbles' show, wherever his show
yeah,
airs, might have had to buy ads on Raw in order to get
and
the placement.
and Christian, his reaction was me. Like, he just, like, "Let's go. Let's just move on. Let's get out of here."
Yeah.
Yeah. He wanted no
Okay.
part of Bubbles.
Let me go to my main negative
Okay.
with
All right.
WWE, which is the Lesnar and Cena match.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'll explain how I watched it originally because I tweeted and I didn't actually go back on the tweet, but I kind of disagree with my own tweet. So I was watching Hangman and I was watching Kyle Fletcher, and then the WWE show started. So I had my phone and I wanted to see what was going on there. I just wanted to see the open. I wanted to see the presentation. Now it's almost impossible to watch two matches at once. So eventually I was able to turn off the WWE show once I saw most of Cena and Lesnar. But when I started watching it, I was like, this reminds me of an old timers game, which
Mm.
was not a compliment, by the way. In
No,
old timers games, you get terrific nostalgia, but then when you start watching and you see these guys hobbling around, it kind of makes your heart hurt a little bit. And as I'm watching Brock Lesnar heave and turn purple and turn red and look like he's about to explode, I was like, "Oh man, this is not good." And these are two different people, but Cody versus Cena looked like John Cena turned back the clock, and Lesnar versus Cena looked like the John Cena that we were watching during his heel run.
mhm.
And so I disagree after rewatching the match on the big TV that it was an old timers game. I think it was just more the design of the match than anything else. But you're telling me this fan base finally gets behind John Cena as the ultimate babyface after this horrendous heel turn, and this is how we're gonna I don't care if he wins or loses, right? It's not really about that. But he gets destroyed in this match. Like,
Mhm.
just he looked like a jobber in this match for the most part. He got a couple of offensive moves in, and then Brock sat up and just beat his ass, very quickly thereafter. So you're telling me that now that we only have these, I don't know how many times Cena's going to be around,
I think he's got
but
7 appearances and, like, 3 matches 2 matches left.
now are we selling the idea of beat down John Cena? Like this is who we're getting behind now is the guy who just got steamrolled by 50-year-old Brock Lesnar, or not quite 50, but like
48.
I was just I just could not believe what I had saw based on what we know that they have to sell for the rest of the year. And I don't know if you saw this, but Brian Alvarez on Wrestling Observer Radio said the only thing that makes sense is if Brock is Cena's last opponent in Washington D.C. and then Cena overcomes him to send the crowd home happy and his entire career is wrapped in a bow. And then Brian Alvarez said today that he actually doesn't think that they're going in that direction, that this was just a one-off.
Yeah, okay, so that first part surprised me because I had the same feeling. I did not think my impression after this is that Brock is going to have a really big match with a really big star, whether it be Seth, Cody, Punk. One of those three. Based on the involvement of Paul Heyman, I think it's got, or Roman, four, like one of those four. And so that's why the match he had to win. And I thought that the match itself, the match was exactly what I was expecting. Although, either one of them could have won. Like, it was going to be move, 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 boom, pins over. Like, I was expecting it to be under 10 minutes and just a bunch of big moves, and whoever was going to win was going to win. I was not expecting, and we got this a lot on the show, and it's actually kind of a positive, but maybe kind of a negative too, was the wins on this show were all like definitive, and like people were hitting their move and winning, and you were almost expecting like something else to happen, like they're going to kick out and we're going to have to hit another finisher, or there's going to be interference, or and people would just hit their finisher and win. And it was like, we don't often get that in WWE. So
Mhm.
that may be a positive, maybe a negative. I think in the Io Stephanie match, for instance, I think people were waiting for Asuka, and when she didn't show up and then the match was over, it was like, oh yeah, okay, that was a great match. But meanwhile, like, we weren't ready for the finish because we didn't see Asuka. This is part of the problem with training your audience, that nothing ever happens until we get interference.
Mhm.
And I think the same thing happened with Cena Brock. He hits him with an F5 and he pins him. And it's like, oh wait, what? Like, he's not going to pick him up and hit him with three more, or Cena's not going to kick out and then hit him. So yeah, it was in that sense. Yeah, I can see where you would think, yeah, you look like a jobber.
Okay, now here's more because again, what WWE is great at is in their build up to make you want to see what they're selling.
Mm-hmm.
John Cena's promo on Monday night, I think, was longer or just as long as this match was, which
Way long.
was a fantastic
Mm-hmm.
babyface, never say die, I will never quit promo. So to
Mm-hmm.
see what he said on Monday and the result on Saturday, it didn't match for me.
Yeah.
And then
100%. Yeah.
what was his intro?
What do you
John
mean?
Cena's intro when he came out
Oh
to the
yeah, the
ring,
greatest of all time, the
and
last
the
real champion. Yeah.
50 kids ran
Oh
out with
God,
him.
yeah. But the people I was with were wanting Brock to F5 those kids.
Well, my first thought was it would have been nice if there were some kids that had
Yeah, yeah.
different races. Like
I think
that
they
would have
were
been a
all.
better explanation of who
I
John
think they
Cena
were all
is.
white. Yeah.
And they were all meant to look like him, kind of like the that one memorable MTV Music Awards
Yeah, with Eminem.
with Eminem and all the
Yeah.
Slim Shady guys. I get it, but still, John Cena's appeal isn't just to white kids. Like John Cena's
Oh
appeal
yeah.
is to all kinds of different kids. So that kind
Mhm.
of irked me a little bit. But so you give us these two things, and then what the actual result is the exact opposite of what you told us. And I'm guessing it is for heat, like everything in wrestling, for heat. We have
Mm.
to set up the heat for this thing. You don't have to set up Brock to have more heat than he actually does. And I'm talking literal heat. Like he's got legitimate
Well,
heat
I
with
think they're trying to transfer that heat. They did the same thing in TNA with Tessa Blanchard. Like, they take some real heat that people have, and then you try to make it part of the storyline, even though you could just lean into the actual heat.
so I don't want them to lean into
Yeah, I know, I know, I
to
know.
that Brock thing because there was a sign on camera that said enough.
Two.
But that's really that's a little bit of a lesser point. I just think if we're telling stories and we're leading our viewers in the right direction and it's working and people are really getting behind this, to just go, oh, here's the big bad, and John Cena's gonna have to do this all. I just like, okay, like you're not understanding what this thing is. You're not realizing all the goodwill that you've done here. And
Mhm.
we'll see what happens with John. We'll see what happens with Brock. Unless Brock gets a real story, I'm less interested in what he does. I'm sick of the hired gun Brock because there's nothing to that. There's no depth to that. He's a prize fighter, right? He just comes in and he has these matches and then he bails
Well
out.
well,
Which
there's something obviously with Paul
yeah,
and
which is why I hope they tell the Paul
yeah,
Heyman story because they
yeah.
did not tell it. After they
No.
undid his last run just at the snap of fingers, and they haven't said anything. So I'm going to
Yeah, I
give them the
forgot about
benefit
that
of the
till you
doubt.
mentioned it. Like, he turned on Brock.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
he totally did.
Yeah, well,
So
and then him saying, "We gotta talk," so you're like, "Okay, well, does he want payback?" Well, no, just wants his manager back.
So, yeah,
So, yeah.
whatever. So that would be but that would be my main negative for that show. In addition to just
Yeah, under-delivering.
I thought just about every match under delivered to my expectation, including the main event, which I actually liked the main event, but it felt rushed.
Yeah.
It felt it felt like I don't think there were any real surprise pins or any like surprise
No,
like it was
no.
just a straight match of
I
what it
mean,
felt like.
like, everything on that card, including Io Stephanie, could have been on TV. Like, if Io Stephanie had been on TV, it would have been like, oh, one of the better TV matches of the year, but it wasn't like it was, like, something that you would only get on pay-per-view. Like, we've had matches like that on TV this year. So, yeah, it was a really good episode of Raw or SmackDown, but it definitely was not a PLE.
Yes.
Yeah,
I would agree with that.
okay.
Alright, what do you have anything is that
No,
was that
well,
your
so the one
negative
thing I
thing or
wanted to
negative?
say was in terms of like the CMLL thing, I brought it up at the beginning. I actually bought the CMLL show and I watched it because I was really interested in that MJF Mystico match. And I think it's kind of like a cross between the AEW and WWE because they have a streaming service that you have to pay. I don't know what the cost is, $30 a month, I think, for like YouTube,
The
CMLL
YouTube,
YouTube
yeah,
channel,
that's like where you get all of the stuff.
all the stuff. But in this case, it was just the one show on Triller, and it was 19.99 US. I paid 27 in Canada.
Mhm.
And I thought I've heard so much about these Saturday CMLL shows, and this is like supposed to be one of the biggest ones of the year because it's the anniversary show. And other than the MJF Mystico match, I was pretty disappointed. Now, if it was something that I got to watch for free, I would have been probably happy with it. But the fact that I paid 27 bucks, there's not a chance in hell I will ever subscribe to that CML YouTube channel, and I probably won't buy another of these shows unless maybe there's an angle I hear about, like MJF Mystico, because that delivered. Like, don't get me wrong, and I don't have buyer's remorse. Like, I enjoyed the show. It was worth the 27 bucks, but it also, I don't think it did a good sell job for their regular monthly service that they provide
Mhm.
because I think you needed to do more outside of MJF Mystico to show people, hey, this is what we're all about. Or either that, or this is what they always show, and the people that watch it just are, they like it a hell of a lot more than I did. And I don't know which it is. It also may be because I watched on Triller, and the people watching on the CML regular feed with the regular announcers and with the audio not mixed badly.
Mhm.
Maybe it's a better maybe it comes across a lot better on that service. But for me, they failed in delivering. So in that sense, it was kind of like the WWE ESPN thing, where you had people doing a trial, which is what I did with Triller, and they failed.
Now, you are not a regular CMLL fan, though you do
No.
follow a lot
I
of the
follow it. I
stuff.
used to watch it, weekly, back about, I'd say, 12, 13 years ago.
Mhm.
And then it just wasn't available, and then it was only available in Spanish, and I'm not that's a bit of a deal breaker for me, plus the $30 a month.
So, if they had more American wrestlers, or would it just be kind of explaining to you where all the stories were going? Like,
No,
what
no,
would
it's
you have
not
wanted to
that.
see?
I just thought it didn't come off great, like, so I think maybe they need a better audio mix, and they probably needed better announcers.
Okay.
Um, you know, or, like maybe, like, if I would have watched it, like, maybe I if I would have watched it in Spanish, even though I don't understand what they're saying, because I knew most of the wrestlers. Like there was maybe like 4 wrestlers on the whole show I wasn't familiar with. So it wasn't that I wasn't familiar with the wrestlers or the storylines. It was the commentary was not good. And the audio mix was terrible. Like there were times when they literally went mute,
Mhm.
or there were times when they were playing the music and they cut out the crowd noise and they cut out the announcers and only played the music. It was really bad. And then I think even the crowd, like at times, like it was very muted. So I think that it was something with the audio mix. And maybe because it was probably like a last minute deal that they threw together. It was Veda Scott and Samurai Del Sol doing the commentary, and some guy named Miguel Castro, who I don't know.
Mm. Yeah, I
So
asked Dave about him. He said that he's their normal US announcer, but I didn't know
okay.
that they did
I
US
didn't
announced
either. Yeah.
shows, so
He
I
was just kind of there. Like he wasn't a positive or a negative, but Sammy was definitely a negative. And Veda, she tried, but she's not strong enough to carry a broadcast. So
Um, and which is an interesting thing because I think you like the majority of those AAA shows that WWE's done.
yeah, I did. I did. But again, I didn't pay $27 for them.
Yeah, they're all on free
So
on
if
YouTube.
if this show would have been free on YouTube, I probably would have, hey, that was a fun, 2.5 hours. Like, yeah, that was the other thing. It was a quick show to watch. Like I think it took me just under 2 hours to watch. So that was a positive.
All right. Next week, we will be back to our normal sort of
Yeah.
rundown here with 3 topics that we just kind of argue back and forth. This one was a little special because of the weekend that we got to see last week. So, and I guess we have AEW. They are building stories and matches for Wrestle Dynasty. Is Wrestle Dynasty? Is that the show?
Yeah. Yeah. October 18th, I think.
And then WWE is doing so for their Crown Jewel in Perth, which is going to be another afternoon show because of the time change, I'm guessing.
Yeah. And UFC's in Australia this weekend too, but they're doing it the normal time. So I guess UFC's powerful enough to say, nah, you want the show, you got to go Sunday morning.
These poor fighters
Yeah.
waking up in the Canelo.
Oh,
I'm trying to remember where he fought the fight before Crawford. It may have been in Saudi Arabia, but I think the fight went into the ring, which would have been his time, like probably like 2 or 3 in the morning.
mm.
So he had to like train his body to like wake up at midnight. Like
Yeah, and I think that Australia show, I think it starts at 6 a.m. their time. The
crazy.
main event will go like 11 or something
Oh, that's not too bad for the main eventers, but
in the
for the
morning. But to the crowd,
for the
you're getting
yeah.
up at 5 a.m. to go to a
Yeah.
show.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, yeah,
That'd be kind of interesting. Like
yeah.
imagine that you were going to a wrestling or MMA show and it was an important one, so you really wanted to go, but they're like, "Yeah, we start at 8." Like how different would that experience be watching a show at like 8 a.m. versus like 7 p.m.
Oh,
or something?
for me, I wouldn't do it. But yeah, if I had to, like if it was something like GSP and Connor or something, like yeah, I
Yeah.
guess I'd go.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would be. I don't think I'd be 100%.
You'd have your coffee with you.
Oh yeah, yeah.
All right, we'll be back next week. So for Paul, I am Double G. See you when we see you. Peace out.